Nope, no, you're good here, not a problem at all. Okay, we're good here.
Speaker. You need a speaker, Dan?
Yeah, just flip the switch. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome you all to our monthly meeting. Appreciate your attendance. So it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening, Dan Bachalis. Dan comes to us from as a graduate from Boston College, and then into New Jersey, where he worked for 36 years for the Health and Human Services, I believe. And his entrance into Hammonton has been, in my mind, memorialized by his wife's quotation: "First, he fell in love with me, then he fell in love with Hammonton." And so I think Dan has probably set a record for the number of committees that he has served on in Hammonton. It's just been unbelievable. And currently that he's serving as chair of the Environmental Commission and the Hammonton Lake Water Quality Committee, and other committees as well, as I'm sure. So it's with a great pleasure tonight that I bring to you Dan Bachalis.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, I forgot Barb said that, and that's actually true. That's actually true. There's always a woman involved, right? At least from a guy's perspective. So I want to thank you for inviting me here tonight. I'm not going to talk about the history of Hammonton Lake. Frankly, I suspect many of you could school me on that in many of its details. But I will talk first a little bit about the current status of where the Lake Committee Advisory Committee stands in its work on the committee and where the lake is. And then I'll get to the main program talking about the birds of Hammonton, many of which you're going to know. Hopefully I'll introduce you to a few more things that you maybe haven't seen, but they're out there. All right, so hoping that technology continues to work. Is this in the way of anything? No? Okay. Beep, beep.
That's good. It's always a nail biter starting up. Is it gonna work or isn't it? Here we go.
Asking for your password?
Pardon me?
Is it asking for your password?
No, but it'll give me a little box to sign in.
It's okay.
I apologize. I probably should have been teeing this up while Bill was giving the introduction, but I think we're here to go. Okay. All right. Get, come on. PowerPoint and the bird of Hammonton. And I will. Slideshow. Ta-da, come on. There we go. Okay, so most of you might remember when you went to the movies, first you had a newsreel, and then you had some cartoons, and then you had the main attraction. I don't have any cartoons, I apologize, so please don't leave yet. But we do have a newsreel, and that's on the status and future of Hammonton Lake and kind of where we stand, recent studies by Stockton, and where we're going in the future. So this is just to let you know, this is the watershed of Hammonton Lake. I should have brought my pointer. No, I don't have a pointer, but you know where we are on that thin inlet there, Fowler's Creek, with the canoe club at the head. But the watershed goes all the way out to the Greenmount cemeteries, and up across town, and then covering the whole Lakeshore Gardens section. So it covers a lot of territory, and a lot of the stormwater from all of that area feeds into Hammonton Lake. Some of it will be taken off to some of the tributaries that head north into the Mullica, but a lot of it will travel into Fowler's Creek. We have not yet begun to investigate what's going on and where the outlets are along here, but the town engineer knows where they are, Public Works knows where they are, so we'll be getting to them. So overall, and this is reporting from, we've been working with Professor Emma Witt at Stockton University for the last few years. And she and her students have been doing, I think there might have been a break in it, but pretty much weekly water sampling to find out how clean the water is and what the characteristics are of it. Dissolved oxygen, which is a measure of livability for fish, and nitrogen, and a bunch of other things, including E. coli bacteria. And that's been one of our main concerns, but overall the water quality is good. The lake is clear. I've been talking to fishermen all summer long, fishermen and kayakers and stuff, who come from really all over the region, including out of state. And some of them say, well, I can't catch enough fish here. Well, you're a fisherman, that's what happens. But uniformly they report the lake is clear. There's some people disputed this, I think, during the summer, but the fishermen actually reported the amount of vegetation was just right, providing some hiding places for fish. Of course, that's where fishermen go to catch them. So they had a good time. So Stockton reports that overall we're doing well in terms of water quality, and we've had that confirmed from the New Jersey Fish and Wildlife people also. In terms of vegetation, a couple of the most common, as you all know, I'm sure, is the bullhead lily or spatterdock or the yellow pond lily, and bladderwort. And I'll talk a little bit more about bladderwort later on. Needs more mapping, so they'll be working on that, doing some GPS. This was their timeline back in the spring of this year, heading into this fall. And you'll see that they're going to be continuing weekly sampling all throughout the year. A little word about this bench scale mushroom work, and then more mushroom work and more mushroom work. What are we doing with mushrooms in the lake? We're not growing mushrooms in the lake. We've got enough problem with the vegetation we've got. We're not going to add to it, and they wouldn't grow anyway. There's been research done, some very serious research done over the last 15 years or more, initially led by a gentleman named Paul Stamets out in the Puget Sound area in the Pacific Northwest, but now taken up by researchers all over this country and all over other countries, Japan, France, Britain, of course, everywhere in the US, that shows that mushroom mycelium, when you pull a mushroom out, you see those, or dig some mushroom soil out, you'll see those little white threads that go through the soil. Those are basically, I refer to them as the roots, but they're also the communication channels for mushrooms, mushroom colonies. And what Paul Stamets has found, and others in his wake have found, that if you grow them thickly enough and place them to intercept polluted water, you can actually draw those pollutants out of the water. The mushroom mycorrhizae or mycelium will actually soak that up and use it as their nutrients to grow further. Of course, that makes them happy, and it leaves us with cleaner water. So what we're proposing to do when Stockton perfects their technique, first they're starting with a bench scale, basically growing it in a jar, doing something in a little basin there in the laboratory, and then moving it to, they've got these large, they're a little more than kiddie pools, but they're large. And they have used them earlier studies on simulating Hammonton Lake's water to see the effect of the snails they found in the lake and the effect of bladderwort and whatnot. So they'll be using that to grow their project. And then eventually what we hope to do, since Fowler's Creek is uniformly and consistently the most polluted portion of the lake in terms of coliform bacteria, we're going to place it up in the further reaches of there, and probably at various stages, to see the effects further up and then further closer to the mouth of the creek, and then monitor successively how, basically whether the technique's working or not. Are we getting it cleaner? Is it working? Is it not working? If so, do we do something wrong and we need to tweak what we're doing? Or do we have to come up with something entirely new? Based on my reading of the literature, I think we're gonna come out on the winning end of that. And there we go. Okay, we'll probably come out on the winning end of that, and we'll be able to successively improve how we're actually using mushroom mycelium to clean the lake up. One thing we found in terms of the lake quality, the coliform bacteria, which everybody's concerned about. I don't know, can you hear me?
Yeah. If you want.
Without it? Yeah?
Everybody okay with that? Yeah,
Okay. Okay, good. I'm just gonna
yeah, that's.
talk. I told you I'm gonna. One thing we found about the coliform bacteria is that it peaks, the counts peak after 2 or 3 days after a major rain event. So you'll be fine at the beach when there used to be swimming. A couple of days later after a big rain, ba-doom, the counts go off the hook. But they subside after a couple of days. What we found when we were doing the testing, after swimming was stopped, is that the beach area is actually one of the cleanest areas in the lake, second maybe only to Sail Lake, because by then everything's filtered out. But Fowler's Creek continues to run high even after no rain for weeks. So that's why we're targeting Fowler's Creek as possibly the source for the coliform bacteria in the rest of the lake. Could be coming from some other areas, but that's our first point of examination. So we're hopeful that if these studies work out, we'll be able to clean things up, and we'll see how it does. And not that swimming's necessarily going to come back to the lake, but as we've discussed the issue at the committee, what we want to do is focus on the water quality, not so much on, gee, we got to get swimming. Let's get the lake clean enough that we can have that discussion with folks in town, with town council, to see if they want to spend the money for it, because the regulations have changed and it's probably more expensive than it used to be. But at least if the lake is consistently clean enough or reliably clean enough, say 90% of the time, at least we can have that discussion, but we'll know that the lake is clean. So that's kind of the direction we want to go in for this. That's just a that's just a picture of Professor Witt here and a couple of our members, Robert Resch and Linnea Cicero, who both live on the lake, and Julian Alvarez, who's our mushroom consultant, discussing things at Professor Witt's classroom, laboratory. It was about a year or so ago. You can see the mushroom mycelium have already grown in his bag and all. It gets really thick, When Paul Stamets first tried this on his farm, he was under orders from the County Department of Health to clean up all the cow effluent that was flowing out of his farm. He had 2 years to do it. He used this technique, and within a year, he had gotten it down, eliminated the bacteria by 98%. So he's kind of the guru, but there are other people who are doing the research also. Okay, slightly different variable. We don't have a complete explanation for this, but these are some of the very brand new findings that we're getting this year. In June, Professor Witt gave us this little graphic showing the pH readings, showing it's a measure of whether the water is more acidic or more alkaline. The blue here, the readings are low, 5.7, 6.45 or so, which is what you might expect from a Pinelands lake. More acidic. I mean, it could even be lower if we weren't already developed here, but it's not bad. As it proceeds up the legs, and you can see up by Fowler's Creek, there's already a spot that's higher, and as it proceeds past out from here, the Canoe Club, and then up out of this leg, Barum, into the main body of the lake, the pH values go way up all the way to the point, by the time they get to the dam, they're at 8.9. Starting to get quite alkaline, have passed the neutral point of 7. And when Professor Witt gave this to us, she noted that they had some preliminary readings from, I think it was from July, that showed pH readings had already gone up past, well past 9, 9.5, 9.8. So we're looking to see what other readings she has taken since July, August, and September. There are some other possible explanations were runoff from people's lawns, because you got all the properties here, so it could be runoff from people's lawns, changing the pH of the water. It could be heat and the effect it has on plant life. So she was investigating that for us, but it was kind of a whole new variable that had never been presented. So this is one of the reasons that we like working with Stockton, because they're using our lake kind of as their classroom, and they're putting what they're learning in the classroom to work on our lake, and we're getting the benefit of the data. Something like this is not always, happy data necessarily, but it's better to know something than to be caught short later on. The lake's latest wrinkle. This year, back in the spring, early spring, we were applying for a permit from New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection to spray the lake to kill off some of the bladderwort. And I'm going to talk a little bit about bladderwort soon, but DEP passed the application over to the Pinelands Commission for review, and they came back to us and said, we have reports that there are threatened and or endangered species of bladderwort in the lake. So you can't spray anything until you find out, hire an outside consultant to get an objective body out there to find out if these are really there. There was a report of, I think it was 1910, of one endangered species of bladderwort. It's probably not there anymore because it was lived in a very fragile ecosystem. But there were more recent reports of these two others, so the town hired Dubois Associates, a very reputable firm, and that's a copy of their cover of their report, and found that indeed there were two threatened or endangered species of bladderwort in Hammonton Lake. The orange outlined in red is purple bladderwort. I don't know why they didn't do it in purple. I don't know. That's just me. And the little teeny yellow here, off in this one further leg of the lake. Now, in the earlier presentation, I was calling that the beaver leg, only because beavers live there. It's not called the beaver leg. That was just my one-off because it made it easier for me to remember. But in this leg, they found more purple bladderwort and the humped bladderwort in the same area. Slightly different ecosystem. You can see the humped bladderwort is up in that little cove, so it's probably a lot shallower than where the purple bladderwort's living. So we weren't able to spray anyway before we even got these reports because the time frame for spraying bladderwort had passed. Bladderwort's, obviously it's an aquatic vegetation, and it grows up from the bottom on relatively thin stalks, thin stems, and it forms these masses of essentially carnivorous vegetation. It's kind of like a Venus flytrap, an aquatic Venus flytrap. Little teeny tiny, almost microscopic little sacs. And they gobble up all kinds of microscopic bacteria and phytoplankton, little animals that are too small for us to see. After a while, though, when it gets warm, these floating masses detach from the stem, and they float all around, and that's what a lot of the hullabaloo was this summer about spring and summer, the masses floating into people's docks and that sort of thing, here and there. Go out to paddle, you've got junk on your paddles, and if you got a motor, it's fouling your motor. You have to catch, if you're going to spray, you've got to spray it before it detaches. Because the chemical diquat dibromide will hit the vegetation, travel inside the plant, and kill the plant. Once it hits the water, the chemical hits the water, it becomes inactive, except for the part that's inside the plant. It becomes inactive, sinks and binds with stuff in the soil, so it becomes relatively inert. So that's what they found. So does that mean that we can't ever control bladderwort again because it's threatened and endangered? Well, Dubois had the, I thought, rather elegant solution to create this proposed aquatic habitat protection area back in this little, where they found the two of the species together. Conveniently, for a very Italian town, it's the shape of a boot, kind of like, you know, not exactly like Italy, but, you know, kind of reminiscent. So what they're proposing to DEP is that we be allowed, we protect this area here, no spraying, and that raises other issues that we'll have to discuss. But hopefully they would allow us to continue treatment of the bladderwort in the rest of the lake so that we could clear it out and maintain navigability, et cetera, et cetera. Those negotiations, I think, have begun, but I don't know exactly where they stand right now. That's kind of the status of that as we talk. Hopefully, they'll conclude those negotiations on a positive note for Hammonton, And next spring, we'll be able to address the situation in the upper part and the, I guess that's the northern and the eastern sections of the lake. So, that's the latest breaking news of what's going on with the lake. So, I'm gonna take a short break before I begin the main attraction. Any questions about the lake? Yeah.
When you go up Route 206 on the left-hand side, there's these lily-looking things, but they always look like they have eggs on the top. Is that a bladderwort? Are they lilies? What are they?
The yellow, with the yellow
Well, I looked up a bladderwort. 'cause
eggs
I
on 'em?
Blue, what you were talking
yeah,
about.
those are the lily pads.
Oh, they
Those,
are?
those are the yellow pond lilies.
And they're not eggs on top. They're
No, those
actual
are the flower.
They're
Those are the flower.
Okay, because I
Yeah.
got close enough.
Very yellow flower. You can see them on Echo Lake and Elm Lake. I mean, it's completely covered.
Yeah.
Completely covered.
Okay.
I'm gonna wait 2 seconds, okay. And I wanna thank you all for not saying, we don't want our lake to look like that, because then I don't have to say, it is never gonna look like that. Because you've gotta just let the lake go before it starts to look like that. And we've got a very active committee, very concerned. Bill's on the committee. I pointed out a couple of people there. Actually, I think it's a majority of the 9 members on the committee actually live on the lake. And I don't live on the lake, but I live like a stone's throw. So we're all very tied to the lake. We're all very concerned about it. We use the park, we use the lake. So we're gonna make sure that we address that. And actually, our October meeting, we had a brief conversation about this in September. We're gonna have more conversation in the months to come about what do we do to control the water lily, to make sure that that doesn't get out of control also. We need to make sure it stays in balance, not too little, not too much. Too little, and fish and wildlife, the turtles, snakes, everything else that lives in the lake don't have a place to hide, have their babies, raise them, et cetera, et cetera. Too much and interferes with human activities like boating and fishing. And there are some people who are out on one end of the spectrum say, don't worry about the human activities, let the lake be the lake. And there are other people who say, we ought to have a pristine lake with be able to boat anywhere we want, I'm kind of in the middle. I think we need to take care of it for all users. The way we want to do for our streets, complete streets, to make it available to pedestrians and non-motorized traffic in addition to cars, but, so, yeah.
I have a question too.
Well, go ahead, Laura, and then we'll get to Rosary
Oh,
real
well,
real
I was
fast.
just gonna say that, let the lake be the lake, but it isn't just the lake, because there's lots of, human and other things that affect it. So that affects it. So it's not like in a pristine area where, you just
Right.
let things go.
Right, right,
And,
right.
it's like a garden, if you just leave it alone, nature takes over.
Yeah.
And whatever else is around, bugs will eat your garden, and, anything can happen.
Yeah,
So you have
and-
to,
and over-
that in the middle is a good plan, I think.
Good,
That's my opinion.
good. Rose.
Oh, yeah, I'm curious about this bladderwort, because it's such an awful name.
Oh, yeah, it's a terrible
So,
name,
no,
terrible name,
Right.
terrible.
So, you said it's endangered, so what makes it endangered? Do you want a certain amount of bladderwort in there that you can't destroy it all? Or I'm not sure about
yeah.
that part of the bladderwort.
Excellent points.
Yeah.
Bladderwort is gotta be one of the worst names of a plant I've ever seen.
It
And
sounds awful.
wart is W-O-R-T, not like a wart on a
Right.
face or whatever. And there are a whole group of plants that have wart in it, spider wort and everything else. Beautiful little purple flower and stuff. I don't know enough about warts to say biologically and whatnot, botanically, where they fall, but the bladder, because they're little air, they're kind of like all mouth. So they're little mouth sacs,
kind of like little Pac-Mans, and they go, and suck things in and chew them up and everything. So unfortunate name. And do you want to have a certain amount of threatened or endangered bladderwort? I don't know. What makes it threatened or endangered is that it's very rare.
So is that good or bad?
Very rare, well, if you're the very rare species, it's a bad thing, because you don't have as much opportunity to recreate, spread your species, which is what all species want to do. Extinction's a fact of biological and terrestrial terrain, if you will, world life, but to the extent that we can prevent things from becoming extinct, we probably ought to be taking those steps. Some people say we're in the middle of the 6th major extinction in planetary history, driven mainly by human activity, eliminating species habitat, which is partly what we're doing here, overhunting, overfishing, et cetera, bringing in other species which outcompete those species. So it's a good thing to try to protect them, but you have to, I think, need to do it so you balance things, but if you're gonna protect it, you gotta make damn sure you're gonna protect it, and not just say, we're gonna put this little boot-shaped protection area here, and then kind of forget about it and let it just.
So you need a certain amount of it?
You don't need a certain amount of it. And that's why I think this is an interesting proposal, because they don't say, well, you gotta keep all of it. But let's keep this amount and see if that suffices to satisfy the environmental authorities about, is that enough? And the rest of it is okay, because we know there's a certain amount here. Chances are we're not going to end up totally eliminating it in the rest of the lake, but we'll keep it under control, and that's kind of the goal, I think, here. So, does that answer your question? Okay, good.
Yeah, I
Bill.
have a comment, Rosarita. If you think that bladderwort sounds bad, the Latin name ends up with vulgaris.
Oh.
Yeah, one of the species is Utricularia vulgaris. Say that 5 times fast, at a party.
You could do it.
I'll try.
And then I just have a comment too, is that it doesn't seem like we've done a very good job of controlling purple bladderwort in the lake. That's
Well,
kind of a-
Well, it's interesting that they found this, because I'm wondering if that's the species that we were thinking was vulgaris the whole time, and we're spraying it, boom, and it goes down. And if that's the case, if they let us spray it, it's going to grow back. Because some of it, the chemical's not going to kill everything. The lake management plan calls for us to identify where the Utricularia, the bladderwort is, and spray half of it 1 year, half of it the second year, and then let the lake rest for 2 years so that we can mitigate any negative effects that might come around from applying chemicals. Although this chemical is very safe in that if it's applied properly. And we don't just kind of do massive annihilation of the species. So you get it 1 half of the year, it kind of gives the other half to hunker down and form plans for how we're going to survive the next year. So we think it's a balanced approach. We'll see how DEP takes it, and then we'll see what happens, hopefully in the spring, when we actually get back to implementing that 2-year spraying, 2-year resting protocol. So, Deb.
I think we just need to recognize also that the Pinelands Association is a very powerful association.
Well, are you talking about the Pinelands Commission?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that we can't do just whatever we
Oh, no.
want to do.
No.
Everything that is proposed has to go through them.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's, we just need to recognize that it's not just us who says, okay, let's do this,
Yeah,
let's do that.
yeah, oh, absolutely. And a lot of people have a problem with that. They want to do what they want to do when they want to do it. I learned a long time ago that even if you're the president of a big, powerful association, trade association, whatever, you still answer to your board, and those board members still answer to other people. So everybody answers to somebody in some regard. The question is, you've got to build friendly and trusting relationships. I learned that at Rutgers. You've got to build friendly and trusting relationships so that even when they're saying, no, you can't do this, and you got to hire Dubois Associates or somebody else, you can work together to come to an amicable and hopefully balanced solution. So that's what we're working on. That's what the town's working on. So, all righty? Okay. Everybody got their popcorn? Okay. So, I just call this Everyday Miracles in and around town. Birds are just a fascinating group of animals. I mean, the bones are hollow so they can fly, but yet they're sturdy as all get out. Feisty little critters, even the little ones, you know. Anybody who's ever been hectored by a little wren walking around, or a catbird, oh my God, they're relentless, you know. So, but they're just magnificent. I think we all know this bird, bald eagle. Is just a and by the way, all of these are stock photos. I used to take shots with a really good camera, but I got these off the internet, except for one that one of our lake members gave me, and you'll see that in shortly. So, symbol of our nation. Always looks fierce, but he's not really fierce. He just looks that way, you know. One thing I want to point out, there's a thing to remember. You can tell what they eat by their bills and their feet. Or in his case, this little hooked beak. Wicked, wicked ripper. This guy has a very distinctive flight pattern. When he flies, his wings are straight out. Straight out. Some birds fly like this, called the dihedral. Others are flapping and flapping and flapping. This guy just soars. When I was working up in Trenton, I took a walk at lunchtime, and I'm on one of the bridges crossing the Delaware River. I was standing there. It was, you know, around this time. I'm looking up the river, and I see this thing. I'm thinking, what is that? And it's just getting closer and closer. And I realize, not flapping or anything. I realize it's a bald eagle. Just flew right overhead. Distinctive white tail, distinctive white head. On the adult, the youngins are a little more uniform in color, but they're still gigantic. Again, you can tell what they eat by their bills and their feet. Those are the talons of the bald eagle, meant for grasping and ripping to shreds. And they do a great job of it. The American robin, kind of a shorter, sturdy beak, seed eater, insect eater. He's not flying around grabbing animals out of the air or giant fish in the water. He's just walking, grabbing worms, of course. Little feet, not meant for ripping, although I'm sure the worms might argue with me about that, but mainly for perching and grasping. So they're part of a group called perching birds. A very distinctive, very common bird. That's the male. The rock dove, or pigeon, used to, I think this guy was brought to America, was really more used to perching on the cliffs of Dover and other areas like that, but I think it's one of our undervalued birds, only because, not because it's not plentiful enough, God knows, but when you really get a good look at it, it's got an iridescent sheen on it. It's got this beauty of its own. Starling. Again, a bird that was introduced because it was Shakespeare's bird, the Bard's bird. So a group of Shakespeare lovers brought it into America and introduced it into Central Park, I want to say sometime in the 1800s. And where is it now? Everywhere. Usually a bird, somebody will say to me, oh, look, a starling. I said, but look how beautiful it is. I mean, when you get it in the right light, again, pretty bird. Blue jay. Used to be more of just especially a winter bird, fall winter bird. Now he's kind of here all year long, screaming at you when you walk out in your yard. They always remind me, oh yeah, that's right, dinosaurs became birds, because if anything's close to a dinosaur, I think it's one of these little screechers. Screecher creature. Now you can see his feet, just meant for grasping. Again, sturdy little bill, seed eater. Cardinal, similar in form, but radically different in color. That's the male. He eats corn, obviously. I think you all know that. Very sturdy bill. The northern cardinal, which used to be more of a southern bird and has expanded its range into our state and beyond. The mourning dove, mourning, because of its soft, mournful cooing sound. Native bird, insect eater, seed eater. I can't even. The feet are made for perching, but you see them mostly in the middle of the road when you're traveling down a street or something. I don't know. Again, a pretty bird, really interesting markings. This one looks like it's got a little knife tattoo on its neck. That's unusual. Yeah, this is like, everybody thinks this is one of the ugliest birds. I think it's really a sharp little guy. Turkey vulture, not a turkey buzzard. Buzzards live out west. This is a turkey vulture. They have one of the most developed olfactory complexes in the bird world. Up here, when they're flying around, how many hundreds of feet up, they can smell. They can smell, and they know where the carrion are. Eyes are really good. Now these guys fly in the dihedral. Their wings are up like a little V, which is good because their nickname is TV, to turkey vulture, and that's how they fly. When you see a bird, big bird flying around like that, kind of soaring around, that's a turkey vulture. There used to be, oh my God, a flock, I guess you'd call it, of 20 or more of them that used to hang out around the red line circle. Over the years, they've spread out now. I had a group of about 8 or 10 of them fly around our house here on Bachelor Lane and landed in our neighbors' pine trees, because the pine trees on a couple of the houses are pretty tall. And the wife didn't quite understand what they were. She was like pretty freaked out. I was saying, it's okay, these are good birds. They won't carry anybody away. Yeah, so like a lot of larger birds, when they're in their on their roosting tree, the snag, especially in the morning, they'll spread out so they can dry their wings, and then they can lift off more easily. Again, there's that. You don't quite get the dihedral there, but I mean, it almost looks like a red-headed bald eagle, but it's not. You can also see the trailing feathers are a little lighter. If they're so high up you can't see the red head, sometimes they're tucked in, you can see the trailing feathers. This guy is a black-head black vulture. They were also a very, very southern bird. I remember being at Disney World and they were common as pigeons. They have expanded their range further north also. So they're in our area in the summertime. And I think I haven't checked this, I apologize. They probably have headed north from here too. Excuse me, they're slightly smaller than a turkey vulture. Oh God, excuse me. This is a northern mockingbird, and you've seen them. They're the ones who kind of like copy other birds' thing, and they'll repeat it 2 or 3 times. as opposed to the catbird, which just blathers. It just goes on and on and on. The mockingbird, at least you think they're saying something because they'll do 2 or 3 songs. They'll repeat it 2 or 3 times before going on to another one. Very alert birds. They'll follow you around your yard too, checking out what you're doing. And they have this habit of holding their wings kind of down, and they'll flick their tail a little bit. So when you see them, I don't know that means anything. It's just what they do. I'm sure it does mean something. But great horned owl, again, very sharp beak for ripping little voles and moles and mice and things apart, snakes and other small critters. You probably know this already, but those ears are not ears, they're feathers. Their ears are actually somewhere over here, behind those feathers. So, I had one of those land if I was taking a walk on the lane late at night one night, and this great horned owl floats down, quiet as anything. You didn't even hear it. It just stood in front of me, looking at me, and I stopped and was like from Chris, from me to you, and just stood there, like, this is my street. You can go back home. So I looked at him for a while, thanked him very much for gracing me with his presence. It was kind of a mystical experience. There he is up in the tree. Again, the look at the talons, if you can see them there, really good for grabbing things and ripping them up. Their wings are, what's the word? Frayed at the ends a little bit to keep them quiet. A friend of mine we were out in the woods one dusk, kind of late dusk, and this shape just kind of ghosted over us. Not a sound at all. Honestly, I was young enough to think maybe it was a ghost. It was like stupid, but it was an owl. It was this guy. There's the eastern screech owl, which kind of does screech, but mostly you'll hear it making murmuring sounds, very strange murps, very, very soft murmuring sounds. I'm not going to recreate it for you because I didn't practice this afternoon. Very small. They are, and the great horned owls, by the way, are back in the area. I heard one yesterday, so they're back. They'll be back until the spring when they're young fledged, and then they'll go off and leave their nest for things like American eagles or bald eagles. A couple of more little screechers. Canada geese. They are Canada geese, not Canadian geese. The Canadian geese are usually seen carrying a glass of milk around. These are not milk drinkers. I'm sorry. They don't always work. I'm sorry. These guys have kind of broken themselves up into migratory flocks and non-migratory flocks. So some of them will stick around longer. And if they don't spend all their time here at this lake, they're going somewhere else, to another lake nearby. Eventually, they'll move, they will migrate, but maybe not as far as they would. They're not going to go to the other end of South America. They'll go down to Virginia or Carolina or whatever.
Now, are they a problem on the lake?
Depends on who you talk to. I don't think they're a problem on the lake. Every time somebody says, oh my God, the geese are so bad, honestly, I go out and I look and I see maybe 3 or 4 geese out in the water. They, obviously, we know they'll mess up your lawn and mess up the lawns here and all that sort of thing. You have to watch where you're walking. That can be prevented if you protect your shoreline, say with beach grasses, that they will not come out of the water to cross because they don't know if there's a predator on the other side. We should probably do something like that on the beach here. to the extent that we're not gonna redevelop it for swimming. And that's a long-term dream, so we probably ought to do that here. We could do that along lakefront owners could do that to protect their lawns if they're finding that a problem. You can do all kinds of things to deter them. You can have live dogs running around and chasing them away. You can have the little metal cutouts of German shepherds and stuff. You can have scarecrows, you know, winging their arms around. They only work for so long. The dog goes away. The geese fly by and say, "Hey, Bill, no dog. Let's go get something to eat." They know. They know. You can shoot them. If you get special permission, you can shoot them because they're a federally protected bird under the International Migratory Bird Act. So you eliminate that population. Another population's flying over later on and says, "Ah, look at that. Empty table, let's go." So best thing to do is to try to take measures to protect what you want to protect. If you're concerned about the lawn, grow something or put some kind of barrier, a visual barrier up, preferably a native grass or other plants that'll protect them, provide a barrier. But other than that, they're going to go ultimately where people hassle them less. Forsyth Wildlife Refuge has a lot of Canada geese. And they'll go elsewhere. And again, most of them are going to leave for the winter. This is a double-crested cormorant. It's an interesting bird. It's a diving bird, so he's got a long bill which helps him catch fish, and short little feet, little webbed feet. He doesn't walk well. He's not a grasping bird. He's a diver, and he just uses them to paddle around and swim. Very fast and stay underwater for a long while. Nice serpentine neck, so he can coil back and snap and catch the fish. They'll do that thing too. They'll perch on a pier or a snag or whatever and dry themselves out. Just some more pictures of them. See them in the water. Sometimes you think it's like you'll only see the neck. You'll think, "Oh my God, I got a little mini Loch Ness monster here." But it's just, again, you can see he's got a curve on that beak, that one, where he can maybe rip the fish up a little bit. And there he is doing his drying act. Soft velvety. This is an American crow. We all know the American crow. They're the ones with the caw, 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 you know. This one, you've heard, it looks just like the American crow. Slightly smaller, but you're not going to really be able to tell when you see them alone. This is the fish crow. And they sound like the American crow with a nasal problem. Instead of caw, 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 they go caw, 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 like something like that. Caw, yeah. Again, you catch them in the right light, and they're pretty good-looking birds. There's a New Jersey state bird, the American goldfinch. They'll be here. They're here in the summertime. I don't see them as much because I've got too many trees around the house. They like fields. They like fields a lot, and a lot of flowers with seed heads and stuff. But people do get them in their yards. They love Niger seed if you're going to feed them. Really pretty bird. And they have this kind of almost a loping flying pattern. They go up and down like that. This is the male. The female is kind of a duller yellow-green or a greenish yellow. The barn swallow. So everybody who comes to the canoe club knows the barn swallows because they live up in here. Really cool birds, really pretty, great insect eater, very swift flyer, prolific insect eater. They help, and there's their flight pattern. They look like
one of those stealth bombers there. Very quick, they'll eat, excuse me, literally tons of insects all year long, so they're doing a great service for us here. This is a picture from one of our lake committee members. These are birds. These are the swallows right here. Obviously, the great horned owl doesn't scare them one bit, you know. So, yeah, pretty birds, but they can make a mess, unfortunately. This is the belted kingfisher, so named because of not just his little belt there, but his real sturdy beak. He can dive. He's a flyer. He's got the perching feet. He's not a swimmer per se, but he will dive and grab a fish and come back out. And he likes to perch on top of things. So if you're on the lake, you'll see him perching up on some trees, telephone poles, that sort of thing. He has a funny little call. I think it goes something like, oh, 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 oh. Don't quote me. Don't quote me. But he has an interesting call. And here's one making his call. Something's got him excited. Yeah, they're cool little birds.
It's a comedian, it looks like.
This is a chickadee. Now there are two kinds of chickadees that come to our area. One comes in the summertime, a Carolina chickadee, appropriately enough, and in the wintertime they'll go back, I guess, to Carolina, and the northern chickadee, or black-capped chickadee, pardon me, the black-capped chickadee will come down from the north and hang out in our area. New Jersey is an interesting spot geographically, because we're at the northernmost range, the northernmost part of a lot of species ranges, and we're at the southernmost end of a lot of other species ranges. So we'll get this influx of birds that a combination of birds you don't see anywhere else. It's probably one of the best birding states in the nation. And I used to know the difference between a black-cap and a Carolina chickadee. They're real subtle, and I can't tell you whether this is a black-cap but it's a chickadee. Probably a black-cap because it's got snow on the pine cones. Yeah. Again, really teeny tiny beak. He's eating little teeny tiny seeds and maybe little insects that he finds on the trees that he lives on. Common grackle. Again, when you see him in normal light, it's just black. He's just a blackbird, and that's why they call him blackbirds. You get him in the right light, and he's got this gorgeous blue-green iridescence that covers his whole body, and it'll get more purple as you go down his feathers on the back. That's the female grackle. And a lot of birds kind of do opposite of what humans do. The females are less well dressed, if I can put it that way, so they can hide on their nest and protect the young as they hatch. And the guys are all dandied up to attract the women. But it looks like she's listening to me. I'm sorry. That's a young grackle. This is a boat-tailed grackle, and you can see them here. Sometimes they're on the lake in particular, but they're more plentiful down south, and they're more plentiful down the shore. Giant tail. When you see them in real life, and the tail just is amazing. And that's the female. Again, they look like the common grackle, but they've got that longer tail. The wrens. Oh my God. This is a house wren, relatively plain, but he's got the beautiful chestnut brownish. They're a little bit of yellow at the end of the beak, but most of the time you're not going to see them sit still long enough to be able
show them their lipstick. Perky little tail, hopping around all the time. I just found out I had two of their nests in my backyard, and I found out what they'll do is they'll build 2 or 3 nests in not next to each other, but one here, one over there, so that they'll use one for their real nest and they'll use the other 2 as decoys. Really interesting. That's the house wren. This is the Carolina wren. You got that white stripe above the eye, a little more white under the bill, and it's got a more uniform color, and you got that nice buff color on its stomach and hind parts. But they're just as perky and just as nosy as the house wren, except they got this little southern drawl. Tufted titmouse, they're more of a winter bird for us, a fall, winter, spring bird. They move on a bit during the summertime, but they're a seed eater by and large. Obviously, they got that little tuft. And there's another picture showing they've got the little blush under their wing. If you ever get a chance to see that, and the tuft can go up, kind of like the kingfisher and the cardinal. Cute, small bird, about the size of a wren, not real large. And they're not necessarily as afraid of humans as a lot of other birds. So you get a chance to see them hanging around the house. They're really good feeder birds. This is a red-tailed hawk. Again, the sharp bill, the claws, they're meat eaters. Checkered breast, this is an adult checkered breast there. A lot of times when you see them, you're not going to see the tail. You'll see it, but from the wrong angle. And you'll wonder what the heck it is if you see this checkered breast, and they're relatively large hawks. A lot of the other forest hawks in particular are smaller, a little thinner. This guy's pretty large. And when they wheel in the sun, when they come around to get birds or whoever, or if they're running away from birds, because birds will attack these guys, the sun catches that tail and it's like, okay, good. Check it off your list and go look for the next one. Really cool birds. Flicker, a yellow-shafted flicker, which is mostly an eastern bird, although it extends out to around the prairies where it meets the red-shafted flicker, and they used to think there were 2 species, and then they found kind of a mauve-shafted flicker or something, so they know they'll interbreed. A relatively large woodpecker. This is the male with a nice little V on his head, which is nice, but if you can catch the shafts and the banding on the back and the speckling on the breast and stomach, and again, large, very sturdy beak for eating insects, but obviously for pecking holes in the wood. I don't know how they pound the wood like that without getting headaches. There he is displaying his finery. He's eating suet at a feeder. It's probably a lot easier than beating his head against the pine tree. This is I believe it's a downy woodpecker, small woodpecker. This is the male with the little red blotch on his head. Their taps on the trees have different frequencies, if you will. The larger the bird, the deeper the sound. If this guy, you hear a little, you know you've got a downy somewhere nearby. This is an interesting comparison. You got the downy woodpecker on the left side at a suet feeder, and you've got a hairy woodpecker on the right side. If you see them apart,
unless you've got an unusually large hairy woodpecker, you're gonna think, well, I don't know what it is, but I think it's a downy, but the hairy is obviously larger. They also inhabit generally different tree habitats. And I think the hairy tends to favor, I think, conifers, and the downy is a little less picky. And if anybody knows something different, please let me know, because, you know, I'm not reading this every day like I used to. Northern flicker, again, a large, pretty distinctive woodpecker, that really dark, almost checkerboard pattern down the bottom with the black and white banding on the back, and the male has this real nice full red head of hair. Very long beak. These guys generally go about their business, and they're not really too afraid of people because they're way up there and they just go around and you follow them all over your yard or all over the neighborhood. White-breasted nuthatch, an insect eater. He has the interesting habit, he'll land on a tree and he'll only walk down. He won't walk around, he'll walk around but down. And then he'll leave to another tree and walk down that tree. I don't have a picture of it. There's a, rats, I'm blanking. Red-breasted nuthatch. They only go up the tree. I don't know if it's a union thing or what, but they only go up the tree, and then he flies around, starts at the bottom. I don't know if they ever pass each other. I've never seen that. Cute birds, cute birds. There he is. Stockton's mascot, the peregrine falcon, also known as the fish hawk, because mostly it eats fish. Sharp talons, hooked beak, big eyes. They don't fly like the eagle, and they don't fly like the turkey vulture, and they don't fly like a lot of other birds that flap. They'll flap, but they almost form a like an M, if you will, because they've got this little crook in the wrist of their wing. So when they fly, their wings are like chip, chip, down to the body. If you see them over the ocean or coming across the bay, or even here on the lake, aside from all the brown and white banding and the really vivid yellow eye, and anybody that large carrying a fish that looks anywhere near like that is going to be a peregrine. And they don't all make that. You see a movie and you'll hear this sharp hawk call. For any large bird, they always use like the red-tailed hawk call. These guys, and the eagles do it too, they make almost like a little whistle warble thing. It's like a little, I don't know, it's a goofy call. You think, a bird that big, you're talking like that? I don't understand it. But very musical though. Pipe-billed grebe, these are divers also. Not as snaky, pardon me, as the cormorant. And the bill's not as long, but they've grabbed little fish, and they can dive for minutes at a time. And you'll see one, you'll go to tell your partners, look, there's a pipe-billed that's gone. And it was right there. And you'll wait 5 minutes and it'll come up over here, so you're not even looking in the right spot. And there's a little bit more of that bill, so you can see the pipe-billed aspect of it. Small birds, we get them in small flocks on the lake for relatively short periods of time before they go elsewhere. This is one of my favorite birds, and you just don't see them often enough. A cedar waxwing. Just absolutely unique bird. A berry eater and an insect eater. They will
hop around on your wild cherry trees and stuff. Little bandito mask they've got there. The feathers look almost airbrushed. And you've got this, if you're lucky enough to see the red tips of the wings, that's great, but you'll usually see this distinctive yellow tip on the feathers. Really, and they'll travel around in flocks. They're not really solitary birds. And there's a look from the front. See, you've got the masking and the buffy head and breast, a little yellow wash toward the rump, and if you're lucky and you really pay attention, you can see the yellow tip of the tail. And they're about a little larger than a robin. They're not small like a wren. This is a northern kingbird. Again, he's got a distinctive white tail, but otherwise he's basically uniformly gray on the back and all white on the front. He will also perch on trees and stuff around the lake, dive down, get some insects, come back up, dive down, get some insects, come back up. Nice bird. This is a rufous-sided towhee, so named because of his rufous side, and he generally, I've only seen them really in the underbrush, and they have a cute little vocalization. They've got the little red eye, but mostly what you're going to see is the dark top and then that bright rufous side there. You'll catch a flash of that and you say, okay, good. Down in the brush, rufous-sided towhee. Interesting bird. There's a house finch. Reddish mottled head, brownish elsewhere. And they used to be really pretty populous. There's a picture of the male and the female. Again, the female is a little less colorful, just a brown and white streaking. About the older I get, the further back it is. In the 80s, I guess it was, they contracted a virus that affected their eyes, and they got all these crusty eye stuff. So they were subject to predation. They couldn't escape. They couldn't see things coming. So their populations really plummeted a bit. And groups like the Cornell Ornithology Lab put bird watchers on notice to pay attention, to keep reporting if you saw them, and if you saw them with the eye incrustations and whatnot. But their populations have started to rebound pretty well. This is their northern cousin, the purple finch. It looks really red, but sometimes when you see it, and it really does look mostly red when you see them, sometimes it gets to a little purplish. They're a northern bird. If you see them here in the wintertime, and the house finch is a winter bird too, if you see them here in the wintertime, you know it's really too cold up north for them and they've come south. They do not usually come here unless it's really cold up there. This is the dark-eyed junco. That's a little winter bird too. It's kind of the original snowbird. Cute little guy about the size of 1.5 golf balls, maybe. I don't know. Winter bird, lives all over here in the Smith Tract, all over the town. Small bill, pardon me, seed and insect eater. Loves to come to feeders. Cute bird. Lives in holes in trees. And I noticed the tree out front here that's been topped and all this pine tree, you got 2 or 3 holes in there. So I don't know if anybody is living in them. I don't know. So I wanted to mention, there's a free app on in the App Store and stuff called iNaturalist, and it helps you identify anything that's living. Plant, animal, of any kind. Take a photo. It asks, what did I see? Tap on that. Usually it gives you a bunch of selections. Pick the one that you think is most likely. send it in. You can share that with a worldwide group of iNaturalist users. And if you're lucky, and it doesn't take much, one of those people will see your post and confirm or correct you. You can ask them, like, or you look at what you selected and what they selected. Maybe you'll see the difference. If you don't, you can ask them, what's the difference? Sometimes they'll point it out to you. Sometimes they'll send you further links so you can research it yourself. Really great species. When we, pardon me, when I found this app, and then the Environmental Commission was doing the town's natural resource inventory. The inventory lists birds that are kind of generally around, but it's not like a living survey, like, they went out and actually counted all the different birds that are in the area. So I thought creating a Hammonton, New Jersey species survey as a project within iNaturalist gives everybody in town a chance to use the app, identify it, and it automatically becomes part of the species survey, kind of like a living supplement to the town's NRI. And it's really been kicking in. We've got over almost 1,200 observations, almost 600 species, got 116 observers, but we've also got 471 identifiers, people around the world who are helping us confirm what we're seeing. And that's all kinds of species. It's not just birds. We have identified a number of birds, some of which you've seen here, and I'm going to have to modify the slideshow to include these. But 29 different species. That's 29 out of, what did I say, 591 species of things. Birds are not easy to take photos of, especially if you're with just a phone. If you're on the run, you see a bird, you go to aim it, and the bird's gone. A plant, a mushroom, are a lot easier to take pictures of. Well, we've got some interesting things here. Let me, Eastern, I spelled Eastern wrong, pardon me. Lesser yellowlegs and greater yellowlegs, which are long, stilty-legged birds, usually see them at the shore. They've been seen here in our town. Mallard ducks, of course, Cooper's hawk, and sharp-shinned hawks. We've got a sharp-shinned hawk living over on Bachelor Lane over here for the last 20 years. It may not be the same one, but they come back every year. They're forest hawks. So they're not just flying around landing on big trees and whatever. They are zooming through the trees, and so fast you wonder how they avoid things. Amazing birds. Baltimore oriole, gorgeous vocalization, and a bunch of other ones. So if you have a mind to do it, it's a free app. It's easy to use. If you need help, I'll help you with it. But if you want to download that and add to Hammonton's natural resource inventory, our natural heritage, I would invite you to do that. And with that, I know I've talked a long time. So any questions, or you want me to shut up? If my sister was in the audience, she would say that. Yes?
Another good app is Cornell's Merlin.
I'm sorry?
Another good app is Cornell's Merlin app. It's a free app.
Cornell Ornithology Lab?
You can
Yeah.
ID whatever bird you see. It goes through like 10-question ID. You can also plug in like, the one I like the most, the one feature is the sound ID.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're out in your yard and there's 100 different birds singing, it will actually, I've gotten in my yard, I've gotten up to like almost 15 different species that it identifies.
So if you've got multiple birds singing and you record it, it will identify all of them?
Yep, it just keeps, every time it hears a different one, it'll give you the idea.
That's really good. That's really good, because iNaturalists will identify via sound, but if you've got too much going on, you've got to make sure you get the one you want the loudest, because I don't think it identifies multiple stuff. Cool, wow. That's a Cornell Ornithology Labs.
Yeah, just Merlin.
Merlin, Merlin, like the bird. Excellent, cool, thanks.
Magician.
Question.
Yes,
I've grown up in this area all my life.
Okay.
When I was a kid at dusk, you always heard the whippoorwill.
oh my God, yeah?
You don't hear them anymore.
Yeah.
I miss them.
Yeah, that could be loss of habitat. Maybe they were living in one area and it got developed or something. I don't know. I was on a camping trip with my college roommate and some other friends up in Lebanon State Forest. And we pitched our tents, ready to go to sleep. Whippoorwill starts, and he went on for like an hour. Whippoorwill, 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 whip. Why doesn't the whippoorwill won't? I don't know. Yeah, see you later.
You were the best.
Okay, thanks.
Also, Bob Whites are gone.
Bob Whites, they're fun too, but they're cool birds. They're cool birds. Yeah.
Just at dusk, you would hear them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you've ever seen a whippoorwill at night, caught it in your headlights, you know where Tales of the Jersey Devil came from. They have bright orange glowing
Oh, yeah?
eyes
Really?
when the light hits them.
Mm.
And if you just see that, sneaking around the woods, it's like, what the hell?
Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah. We were just trying to shut our eyes at that point in time, but yeah, that's cool. Thank you for bringing that up. We'll keep our ears and eyes out for it. Yeah, a lot of times you'll hear birds and when you can't see them, so it helps to be able to identify them by sound. Yeah. So,
Oh, we heard whippoorwills too, yeah, we heard Bob White all the time. They're gone.
okie doke. Oh, yeah.
We have a red-tailed hawk that lives in our neighborhood.
Nice.
We have a lot around. It sits on the top of the tree and just screeches
Uh-huh.
and screeches. What's it screeching for?
He could be broadcasting that that's his territory.
Uh-huh.
He could be saying, "Come on, girls, I'm over here," or he could be saying, "Boys, I'm here, so you stay over there." One of those two. Beyond that, anything would kind of be a guess, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it just goes on and on and on and.
yeah. Is that during one particular part of a season, or is it like?
It's not as bad now.
No,
but-
haven't heard him recently, so I'd say
Earlier.
early to midsummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably broadcasting that he's got his territory, and if any of the females are interested, come on over, and if you're a male, then this is my territory, so find your own place.
Yeah.
Meet
Yeah.
me in the tree, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also a bald eagle that nests up in Old Forks Road.
Ooh.
I don't know exactly where the nest is.
Okay, good.
But if you wanna see a bald eagle
Yeah.
flying around.
Hang out there. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
That's great. A lot of times when, especially when you get to threatened and endangered species, like the bald eagle, some naturalists and other authorities and whatnot will tell you, "Oh yeah, you've got X, Y, and Z in your area," but they're not going to tell you where it is.
Yeah,
So you can go and trample it,
yeah,
or shoot it, or capture it,
Yeah.
or whatever.
right.
But that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, we were shocked when he flew over one time.
Yeah.
Well,
Neat.
that is
Neat. That's great.
Last thing I expected to see.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've probably gone
Thank you.
on way too long,
No.
but I appreciate it. Thank you. And if you ever want to get in touch with me, just to confuse things about my last name, that's the old Lithuanian spelling,
Oh, yeah.
but it's pronounced the same way. But I don't know why I did that. It's caused me so many headaches over the years. info@town@hammonton.org. Just let them know it's for either the Environmental Commission, the Lake Committee, Dan Bachalis, or whatever. Or contact me directly at dtgbachalis@comcast.net. Okey-doke. So thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's,
Great questions.
Yeah.
Can I get like a photo of like, I guess like you?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
and you?
Yep.
Like for like all three of you guys.
Push this back a little
Maybe
bit.
just, let's see, you want this in here or no, it doesn't matter?
I don't think it matters.
Okay. Here we go.
All right, there you go.
Here we go, link arms. Or...
Put the skinny guy in
Yeah.
the middle.
Oh,
Remember
yeah,
Mary-
really.
Mary
You
was
wanna put it, yeah, why is it, why?
Ready?
Anyway.
1, 2, 3, smile. Sorry, the camera's being weird. Let me back up a little bit.
Okay.
Awesome.
All
thank
right.
you.
Okay,
Thank you,
great.
thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
thanks
that
for
was
having
great.
me.
Yeah.
Bill,
Very nice.
thank
not
you.
bad.
Hope it went okay, you know?
Good learning experience. I live on the lake and it's a good lot. Yeah, I don't really get into the
You say
birds.
Robin.
Right, that's
Well,
it.
you know.
That's it. Right.
well, you know, I figured, okay, good, I've got the slides all set. And then it's like, good night, take
Bye-bye,
care.
good night.
And I thought, oh, wait a minute, iNaturalist. So I went and went through iNaturalist and looked at what we had in there, and I thought, I don't have these birds in the slideshow. But it was like so much going on, it's like, I'm gonna have to work them in somehow. But next time, I'll give an update.
We did see an eagle.
Yes, yeah,
And then and you could see a shadow. They're coming across, our.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
just
Like it's a
stayed
Rodan.
there for about, maybe a minute.
all the
like
time
that.
on the farm. They're on the farm.
Oh, yeah?
Eagles are-
Oh, yeah.
They like water, they wanna go to the water.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
So they go to the ponds.
They're
Yeah.
at the Smith track, they've been there for a
A
while.
lot of hawks, too. I've got a ton of hawks.
Yep, yep. We were out at the Forsyth Wildlife Refuge one day, and this bird just come plummeting down and plop onto something. Probably was another bird. I was like, what the heck is that? It was far away. You get your binoculars, you get the scope out. Oh, big old eagle. Sat
Bill.
there,
Bill.
Unbelievable.
Are these your keys?
You're right though.
Somebody's
Owl.
hunting for keys?
Oh my goodness, yeah, that was me, thank you.
They are. They're like spooky. Really was spooky. But I tell you, having this outland in front of me and just look at it, like,
Yeah,
is there some like weird Indian thing going on here?
Yeah, this is nice and long.
No, no.
Our daughter's a naturalist.
Oh, yeah?
And she's up at White Memorial up in Connecticut, Litchfield, Connecticut.
Oh, wow.
She's an education worker. She's coming down this weekend, but she has done a lot, with the only birds.
Take care.
Good night, Dennis.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah. With, she does demonstrations with
Live bird.
owls and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
Most of the time there, I mean, she's worked at the Watertown Zoo for a long time.
Oh,
She
man.
worked at a rehab center too, but now at White Memorial, all they have is,
Broken wings and stuff, yeah.
But she still does and
That's cool.
It's such beautiful birds.
Yeah, they are. They're just amazing. They're just amazing.
But when I've seen
Everything
them
now?
fly.
Your phone, the camera, and everything?
Oh, yeah.
They
It's
are,
like-
it's like no noise.
Yeah, that one time Van and I were walking and it was like, what was that? And it was kind of there and then gone in the woods. It was just flying between the trees, just like that. Like, I don't know, like a stealth bomber. There's no noise at all to it. Craziest thing, but they're a lot of fun. I don't do as much bird. I hardly. I guess the safe way to put it is I don't do any but real birding. I'll see them when I'm doing something else. I don't take the trips I used to take, but it's still fascinating stuff.
Our daughter, when we used to go out, we used to live in St. Louis and
Uh-huh.
go up in Mississippi, and
Oh, man.
you'd see eagles, you go up there in January,
Yeah.
and we'd be looking, oh, there's one, and she said, yeah, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there. She can get stuff out, it's uncanny,
yeah.
and of course the sounds, she's ridiculous on sound.
Oh, yeah. Well, you really do have to know the sounds, because especially for like warblers in the springtime, you've got the new canopy coming up, and you can't see them because they're up there in the canopy getting the insects and stuff. So we used to go out with people from Audubon and be just walking along like the Princeton Woods or something like that. And then Oh, yeah, there's a blue-winged warbler. Yeah, there's a Connecticut warbler.
It's disgusting.
And and every once in a while, though, they would see a bird up on the wire or something like that.
Is this theirs?
That's a silhouette warbler, because that's all you can see. Just making something
Making
up,
stuff
just
up.
something silly.
Our,
But-